want to talk about essentially the end of your practice. Because every practice essentially has to have some kind of completion. And many people consider their spiritual practice a lifetime work. But why would you want to practice something your whole life and never do it? Why do you think that practice is the end goal? This idea that if you practice, somehow you will be a better person. If you practice, you will learn certain things along the way. Most people who come to spiritual life are trying to learn a number of things. If I were to give you a test along the way, your practice would show that you were getting better in things like stress reduction, happiness. You would be achieving certain stages of development that you would think of as signs along the way to prove that your practice was good. And essentially, what you would be achieving would be moments of capacity that resulted from your effort. For example, if you are practicing for a history exam and you take the exam, you will remember, if you're lucky, if you've practiced well and you studied well, you might remember 100% of the things that you were studying. I will guarantee you, somewhere like a week later, certainly a year later, probably 80% of those questions you would fail on, because you practiced for the exam. You practiced for this achievement, and then you got it and you were done. And therefore, whatever you got was lost, and so what did you get? You got a degree, perhaps. You got something that said you were whatever degree you get. A lot of people end up as master's degrees and doctorates, and it basically said you learned something at one point in time. But the idea in spiritual work is to get beyond practice, where you're no longer trying, you are the thing itself. You're no longer trying to hold on to something, trying to prove something, trying to document your achievement, trying to arrive at some kind of certification. What you are trying to get to is a place where you're no longer trying. In spiritual terms, it's called effortless effort. And I don't think that makes a lot of sense to most people. I know in the past, I've best described it, I think, as the time where you practice running to learn how to get your gait right, how to get your foot to hit the ground right, how to not create problems for yourself in your stride, in your balance, in your alignment. And then you actually start running and you keep all those factors in place and you arrive at this moment where you're no longer doing it. It's called second wind. Is that what it's called? Second wind? I think it's one way to look at it. Where the running is happening by itself. A kind of ease and simplicity arrives because you practiced. But then the practice now is perceived in the actual experience of running. You aren't trying anymore, you're doing it. And we're all at a point in this spiritual practice of ours where practice really is no longer the key ingredient. You've all done it. Every one of you in this room have done this for a very long time. Whatever level of stress reduction you were looking for, you either got it or you didn't. Whatever level of attainment you're looking for, you've got it or you don't. The idea that there's more to get if you keep practicing is really kind of absurd. Because at what point are you done practicing? Well, you're there. This is no longer a practice. This is now what you do. It's how you live. Excuse me. And I know you're all thinking, well, I wish it was that simple. And I wished it was that simple too. Because I practiced for, I don't know, almost 50 years. And then the thing that occurred for me was the end of practice. What occurred for me was essentially, and you've heard this now 1,000 times, the person who was practicing no longer existed. It was no longer there. There was just being. And being requires very little practice. Being just is. There's no effort in being because you do it very well. You're not trying to reduce stress because there's no one who's stressful. Stress may be there, but there's no one who's owning it. It just passes through the system. There's no one trying to get to something because the thing you're trying to get to really already exists. What is it? I mean, you're trying to get to a place of worldly achievement. And what happens with worldly achievement? Basically, whatever you get in the world, and I don't care what it is, you become president, you become the head of a university, you become a doctor, you become whatever it is you're dreaming of becoming, what happens to that? It doesn't last. It happens, you get it, and it's gone. At some point, you move beyond everything you were trying to get. But what doesn't go away? What doesn't go away in that process? It's called being. You're still being. You just aren't getting. You're not having because everything you have is already past tense. All that's a constant in all of this is being, and you're really good at it. You're really good at being. Whether you know it or not, you got it down. It's just happening. The problem is that everyone is identifying with the having, the getting, the being, which is recognizable to others. This idea of being as something which is an owned experience is something that is misunderstood by almost everyone in the world. The thing you're trying to achieve is the very ground in which all achievement takes place. And there's nothing to do other than to go, oh, this is it. And what happens when you go, this is it, and you just surrender to that, is you start to realize that being is everything. That simply being is miraculous. That being contains everything, including all of your success and all of your failure, all of your joy and all of your misery. It all circulates around your being the same way weather circulates through the atmosphere. It comes and it goes. It's there and it's not there. You never know what it's going to be. But if you identify endlessly with the weather, let's say, you become obsessed by changeability. Like, oh my God, it's going to rain tomorrow. Oh my God, it's going to be beautiful tomorrow. Oh my God, it's going to be this, it's going to be that. I've got to protect, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. And it's a constant involvement in all this stuff that keeps changing. And if you simply understand, aha, weather comes and it goes. Rain comes and it goes. Hurricanes come and they go. Yes, they're big. Yes, they're powerful. Yes, some days are absolutely stunningly beautiful. It's going to be whatever it's going to be. Even while we're sitting here today, we've gone through all of these changes of environmental experience. The weather has changed. The winds have come and gone. The clouds have disappeared from the sky. The sun has suddenly come out. This has all happened. And you haven't been sitting here thinking, or maybe you have, oh my God, I'm going to need an umbrella because the rain might come later, or I need an umbrella to protect me from the sun, or now I've got to put on sunscreen, or whatever it is the brain goes through all the time. That's an obsession with the day-to-day experience, when in fact, it's just weather. Your experiences, your emotions, your dreams, your aspirations, your failures, all of your stuff, it's just stuff. And yes, we desperately cling to that stuff. We hold on to all of it because it's so precious to us. But every single thing you cling to, everything you cling to will be lost. And why will it be lost? Because that's the agreement that's been made coming into this world. It's temporary. It's impermanent. You get it for a while, and then it's gone. Sometimes you get it for 1/10 of a second. Sometimes you get it for 40 years. Whatever you get, poof, poof, gone. So why are you practicing holding on in all these different ways to all of these structures, none of which will last? What's the purpose here? It's a kind of unbelievable ignorance that's at the core of everybody's suffering. Everyone is suffering because of the truth, that you're going to lose it. That's suffering. You're going to lose everything you have, and you know it. And then there's this existential crisis of, oh my God, I'm going to lose me. I'm going to lose this body. I'm going to lose all these wonderful and terrible relationships. This house, the framework of safety and protection, you know, the cave I live in, the person who around me who's going to take care of me, all of that ultimately fades away. Knowing that as a fact seems to do very little for anybody. It does nothing but make you more insecure and more desperate. You know, what's the one thing I can get that I can hold on to that will save me? Spirituality. If I become spiritual, they will protect me. I will be okay. I will be safe. And so you begin meditating. You begin going on retreats. You think, if the teacher loves me and gives me Shaktipat and energy and compassion, you will be safe in the world. But it's a lie. You're still going to die. It's still they're going to take everything away. I don't care what you do to try to become the best, most beautiful, wonderful spiritual person ever. It doesn't do anything. It's not additive. It doesn't come together and give you something that you can take away. The only advantage of finally, deeply giving up this insane belief that you're going to be protected by this practice or any practice is that at some point, the very person who thinks they're going to be protected disappears. You realize it was a false construct. It didn't actually exist. The you that you think you are is the very source of your suffering. It's another temporary element. You bring yourself into focus, into being, based on a construct created by your mind, and it's influenced by your parents and your friends and everyone you knew, your teachers. Everybody builds this thing, and then that's the thing that wants to survive, and it can't. It's just as impermanent as the chair you're sitting on, as the walls that are holding up this house. It's not going to last. So what we're kind of doing spiritually in this class is trying slowly to dismantle this false sense of self. If we can take away a little bit here and a little bit there every day, wash it away, we will start to get to a place where there's less of you to let go of, where there's fragments of you that are falling off every day, just being shed. And if this class doesn't help you do that, life will help you do that. You know, I mean, I work in Hollywood. You know, they do assaults on your ego every second of the day. Work in academia. I've never known a place more focused on ego destruction than academia. You know, everyone there is fighting to be something. And only if you're conscious do you realize that that thing you're fighting to be is the very thing that wants to be extinguished, because it causes you so much grief. If we can strip you away a little bit at a time, bit by bit, there will come a point where what you have to let go of will be so tiny that it will just go. We call it the blowing out of the flame. It's like blowing out a candle. But the problem is, you come to this class for that process to occur, and yet you come on false pretense, thinking, if I come here, I won't have to have that happen. If I come here, I will become such a beautiful person, they won't want to extinguish me. I will be such a wonderful saintly being that people will come and bow down and worship, and I will be this wonderful, still-pointed being that will be allowed to exist forever. And the truth is, yes, you will get close to that. But the part of you that wants to exist forever will reveal itself to be the problem. That's your problem. That everything that brought you here, in a sense, is keeping you from what you truly want. And that's a real conundrum. It's a real spiritual conundrum. Because you think by becoming this perfectly pure person, you're going to be safe in the world, and really what you're going to be is more obstructed than you've ever imagined. What's wanted in spiritual practice, really, is a kind of an alignment with being nothing. An alignment with not trying. An alignment with effortlessness. Just being. And until that moment where your ego mind flashes away and you're no longer there, until that moment, you want to become, if you will, lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter. And what you will see as you go through your day-to-day life, especially if you have a spiritual practice, is how you don't allow that to happen. How you get in your own way over and over. And it's basically something you observe through what grabs you, what hooks you, what are the things that reinforce your ego mind. They're not hard to see. It's probably the stuff that's most visible in your life. What is it that makes you go, you can have everything but that? And it's often so stupid, this stupid little stuff that comes up and grabs you because it really affects your sense of ego self. Whatever these little tripping moments are that you go, you can have everything but that. That's where you run into trouble. And life will show you that stuff. It will show it to you over and over. And that's the exact place that you have to let go. Some people they design a life around avoiding the very thing they're afraid of. Whatever that may be. You may design a very simple life because you're terrified of complexity. You may devise an antisocial life because you're afraid of people. You live a perfect life for yourself, very quiet, you work in the garden, you think you're completely simple and life is so wonderful for you. God forbid you should have to go into a social situation and your ego would be totally terrified of defining itself in front of other people. Whatever your thing is, it's going to come up. And that's going to come up a lot. And that's your signal through spiritual practice of that's the thing I have to let go of. And how do you let go of it? You take a breath. And you ask inside for help to surrender. And you ask for help to surrender because you can't do it by yourself. You just can't. We're all caught in this thing. We're all locked into it in a blind sort of not aware sense of self. And so when you ask for help, clarity comes in. There's a vision that comes in that says, look what I'm doing. This is crazy. Why am I doing that? And so suddenly, the help you ask for comes through, and some clarity of vision comes through, and you go, that isn't something I need to do anymore. And you let go. You surrender. And a part of you falls away. And if you're lucky, you don't bring it back again. You let it fall away. You do the negative psychic tension release exercise, and you keep it from reforming. And you find you're freer than you used to be. You're freer and you're freer and you're freer. And life is extraordinary. So when the time comes where the you that keeps holding all this in place falls away, there's nothing hardly lost at all. It's like, wow, done. And then it's not done. And again, I can talk about the not done part of this forever. It's the beginning of another part of your practice, or of your existence, let's say, because you're no longer really practicing. You're just watching the living of and the being and what being is. So it is an enormous kind of knowing. I would say it was learning, except it's not acquired and it's not held on to. Being completely free and effortless is just being in the world and going, it's so amazing what the world is. It's so amazing what being is, what walking down the street is, what sitting in the car is, what drinking a glass of water is, what everything one tends to miss in life because you're so busy with everything else. Suddenly being is effortless. There's nothing to be done, just be. And being, not only is it effortless, it's filled with wonder. And it's filled with extraordinary sense of not knowing. It's like, as they say in the classic writings, you know that you don't know. There's no way you can put it all together. There's no way to understand it. You just know you are that. You are one with what is. There is no separate anything. And how do you explain that to yourself? How do you explain that you're the carpet? How do you explain that you're the sunrise? How do you explain that you're the ceiling? How do you explain that to yourself? There's no way to get it. How do you explain that you are the very people you're looking at? You are the other. How do you explain the unbelievable suffering that the body can go through? What is this? Why does it hurt so much? Why is it so beautiful? No answers. It just is. And you start to be aware of this inexplicable reality that you are. That's where we're headed. Spiritually, your practice leads to that. The truth is, you're already there. You're already being all of that. Mostly your practice is getting in the way of really knowing. Your practice tells you, oh, I get it. Oh, I understand it. Oh, I see what they mean. Oh, this is how it works. Everything that does that is your problem. It clouds the truth. Everything you understand about life is wrong. It's just wrong. Even if it's right, it's wrong. If you understand how molecular physics works, great, but it's wrong. You know, if you understand what relationships really are and how they work and how they come together, and this is if you do this and you do that, if you get all of that, great, but you're wrong. It's only a temporary construct. It's only part of something that's so much bigger. And you will never get it, ever, because there is no one to get it. On the other hand, trying to get it is exactly what we're here for. So you start to forgive yourself for this incredible insanity of trying to hold it all together, because that's what we do. You just go, oh, that's the process. So you end up being human. You end up being one of these people who has faults, who has problems. And you go, okay. And so you forgive yourself for all of the stuff you ever were, all the stuff you are, all the problems you may get in the future. And you realize that you are both a human being and a body and a personality and an ego mind, and you're none of it at the same time. None of this makes sense. There's no way for you to understand what I'm saying. So there's this incredible thing of going, I give up. I surrender. And in that surrender, there you are. There you are. In this wondrous state of being, which includes everything. Clearly everything. Yin and yang all together, and you are that. Right now, you are that. And all I want to do is help you to know this. And I can't. I can talk it till I'm blue in the face, which you know I do. And I do it over and over, and there's recordings you can even listen to, and they won't be any different than this recording, just a different slant on exactly the same thing. But if it can get through in any way, if I could just get through to you and just have you go, I get it. Or better than I get it, the I goes away, and then you just are it. I am it. Wow. That's all I want for you or anybody. It is not impossible. The great teachings of all time, all the great teachers have taught this. All of them. And it's not even all that complicated. It just looks complicated. Non-dualism seems so strange. How can it be this and not that at the same time? It's like, wow, that's really interesting. You know, the great poets write about it. You know, the philosophers, all of them from time immemorial. They're all saying this exact thing. And every one of them knows what you know. But they are no longer in the search or in the practice of trying to get it. They just are it. And all I wish for each of you is that you recognize this. It's called realization. And you cannot make it happen, but you can live a life stripping away ego-minded tensions and fears and confusions, letting it fall away. Live long enough, it will fall away by itself. Let it go, let it go, let it go. Surrender, surrender. Ask for help to surrender. And at some point, all of this will free you to realize that you have never not been there. You have never not been being. You are that right this second. And that's the teaching. Practice all you want, but you're only going to arrive at the fact that you are being. You're a human being. And it's a miracle. Any questions?
What about humor and sort of lightness?
It's great. No, I mean, there are people who say the closest you ever get to real enlightenment in the world is when you're laughing. Because laughing is a recognition of a truth. I've been watching Chris Rock a lot because he's promoting his show, his new movie. I mean, I love this guy. he speaks the truth. He speaks absolute truth. He's not going into that new World Trade Center for anything. You know, he talks about that, and he has me rolling on the floor because he's saying what everyone's thinking. Why would I go into this Target? You know, why would I do it? And it's like, nobody dares say these things, but he does. And there's a lot of, I mean, every really great comedian, the really great ones, hit the truth. And when you laugh and you let go, at that moment, you're in truth. You're just, it's clear and it's so sweet and it's the best form of enlightenment. You know? The only problem is the people I know who are great comedians are some of the most suffering human beings I've ever known. So they pay a price for that truth, for getting there. And so I don't know what to say about humor. I mean, you always wish, everybody I know wishes they could be that. You know, be the comedian, make people laugh. You know, everybody would like to do that. It's not easy. But
and then the other question is, all these, you know, I'm around because of Daniel, my brother, and, you know, so many Tibetan Buddhists, the high practitioners, lamas, rinpoches, they're all so light, and they're all so, have such a great sense of humor, and I feel like some of them are truly realized beings, and they all do so much practice, and they really believe in the idea of practice as the purification of the karma and heaviness and the tensions and knots that aren't even from this lifetime that we all feel when we do work.
Sure.
I do. And,
sure.
And there is something, I feel like when I do in launch practice as well as practice, and there is something that with just the practice and the everyday sitting and the everyday whatnot does release. It feels like and it also in some way feels like it calms the mind in some way. I never think I've ever come here with any thought that I would be a perfect person or desire, or I never have. I don't even think that's reachable in my lifetime, but I really, I feel like I never know what I'm going to get when I come here or even think about it. Like maybe I'm just kind of.
But what are you trying to say then?
I guess I just am curious about the idea of
not practicing.
Well, it doesn't feel right or authentic in some way, or
well,
like that much will. In some way, it feels like then there will be other habits that will form with the result of not practicing. And in some way, like almost like if you don't use that time to practice and you watch TV or you do something else, I don't think it's really possible as a human being in this life with all its distraction in some way to just be a fully enlightened human being every day because I think I could be and decided I am or whatnot. It doesn't feel realistic.
There's a lot of judgment going on. I mean, fully enlightened human being.
Well, whatever, enlightened, realized, all of these things. Or whatnot. I mean,
I get it. I mean, I get what you're saying, you know, and, you know, practice implies that you're trying to get to something, but being does not necessarily mean that you don't sit quietly, that you don't have a form in your life, that you don't have a structure in your life. It's all there. Okay. It's just you're not trying to get to something else. All you are trying to do is have a life, have your life, you know, whatever that may mean. And you can have a life and be very light about it. You can have a life and be very driven. There's a lot of different kinds of lives, you know. I mean, being a spiritual being and living in a monastery situation, let's say, is very structured. And a lot of people love that, you know. If you take those people sometimes out of that situation and put them with their in-laws or with family or whatever, you might find that doesn't hold up quite so much. You know, certain structures are very easy. Rudy used to talk about the Zen monk who kills another Zen monk for stepping on the flower that he grew. You know, that kind of subtlety. You know, you're in a way you're judging this from a certain perspective of whatever they have is the way it should be. It's a way, and it may work. And I don't want to say it's not going to work. But what I'm trying to say is being is its own truth, and everybody's being is part of one whole. Is all I can say. And when you find yourself in that space, which is where you are, it's like a revelation that you've always been there. That's all I can say. It doesn't in any way say you're done, because you're still here. And there's still a body, and there's still all of this stuff. But it's not the way it was quite before. The thing that was dominating it before was a lot of ideas about what it's supposed to be, and then there you are with like, oh, this is what it is. And you can't even formulate what it is because it's so beyond formulation. As anyone who looks at life realizes, it's endless mystery. It's just endless mystery. So the walking around with some sense that you know something or that you have it can be problematic. And walking around thinking other people are there and they have this thing that you don't have is illusory. Because what you're going to get in the end and what they get is the same thing. It's just, you know, it may be from your particular angle, but after your angle kind of dissipates, it's just, you're just there. You're still contained in this body, which will have its own particular trajectory. Your body will leave the world differently than somebody else's body will leave the world, and you have to go through that. You know, and nobody probably will enjoy that process. But being itself, just being in the world, is a truth of absolute vast unknowing and mystery. It just is that. And some people are more at peace with that than others. I've met all these awakened people now, and there are certain commonalities, and there are certain dissonances. They're different, you know, but they're all kind of in their own space of totality. They're their component of totality, whatever that is, and that's what we all are, even as we speak. And trying to get there is kind of funny because you're already there.
Okay.
So devoting your life to trying to get there in some way.
It's almost like being really American about it, right? In some way, like the ambition, the trying.
Yeah, in a way, although people have done that through other cultures as well. Mm-hmm. There's a big drive to get to something, and you know, and you're going to get there through your particular configuration. You know, I mean, look, life manifests in all these remarkable ways, and an ant experiences the world much differently than I do. Not to say their experience of the world isn't absolutely valid and crucial to the larger concept of being. Their being. You know, my dogs, we had wonderful dogs. You know, I know they felt the world differently than I did. You know, and it was valid. It was completely valid. And they weren't as complex about it as I am. You know, so they had a wonderful reality of being. They weren't awakened to that being, perhaps. That seems to be something that can happen to human beings. That awakening to being is an extraordinary achievement. A consciousness of being at all is something that seems to be the great arrival of a human experience. You know, I can't say much more than that. I mean, you know, if I sense there's beyond and beyond and beyond, but there's no way for me to pontificate about that, because I don't know. I mean, the thing I'm finally trying to say is you arrive at not knowing, but you don't have a problem with that.
And so I've been having major construction in my home, and I have felt that these people working there have been taking me for a hostage. I've been hostage of their, ineptness work. So I've been just dealing with that for 3 months, and then suddenly I started to laugh. And yesterday I just drove and I laughed so loud, and the louder that I laughed, the better I felt. And this morning at home too, they showed up with some issues with paint and all that, and then I forgot the laughing. You know, I get too serious.
Right. But that's what. Yes. But to go to what Tara said, laughter is a release. It's a kind of incredible acceptance. And yes, until there is some kind of loss of the ego mind, until that happens, you get caught again in the same thing. And the lesson of spiritual practice is saying, oh, look, I just got caught again. And then you try the next time not to get caught and not to get caught. And you start to get looser and looser and looser. And you start to let that stuff fall away. And at some point, the you that's left is so minuscule, you can just literally blow it away. That will happen. But it's a lifetime of practice until you finally arrive at an effortless going, You can call it laughter, except it doesn't always arrive as laughter, but laughter is a great metaphor for what this is. Yes?
My daughter is going to be 9 in a couple of weeks, and we just had a conversation last night about it's like being on a wave, and sometimes you're in a trough, and sometimes you're at the peak, and if it wasn't for the waves, it wouldn't generate more life in the ocean, and that we all experience life through peaks and valleys, and that the happiest people embrace the opposites, all of it, the pain, the experience, I wish that there was something like this for her that she could be involved in, because I.
Well, she's lucky to have you for a mother. That helps.
She says to me, "I want to be in there with you," and I'm like, "Let's find something that we can do together." That, you know.
Yeah, 9 years old is a little early for this. Rudy used to
for this, way too early.
Yeah.
But something.
Well, I mean, look, I know people who are trying to bring meditation into the school system, which I think is completely brilliant, and have done it and documented it and had remarkable results from it. Getting the culture to move toward that. I mean, meditation is still woo-woo to 99% of the culture, so it's very hard to introduce it. It will happen. I know it'll happen down the road because it kind of has to happen. It's here. You know, it's unfolding. You know, you did a whole piece on 60 Minutes last week about
corporate world, which is, you know, perfect place for it. And mindfulness is just part of the journey, because mindfulness is still me being aware of something and being able to calm me down. There's still so much further to go in all of this, but it's still part of getting there, and it's really important, and it's really beautiful. Your 9-year-old has you for a mother. My granddaughter, I'm trying to build a certain foundation with her of awareness and consciousness. And it's really wonderful because she's getting little pieces of it, and I don't know how long I'll be around to provide it, but the world will be around to provide for her. And if you get the early foundation in it, it just helps. So you're doing a lot for her. This is important in life. I mean, it's so sad that our culture is so misguided, you know.
You know, there is a program in Santa Monica, or UCLA, they have meditation for children that age. I think it's Insight, or from UCLA Mindfulness Institute. Just Google it. They do.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. And then there is also spirituality for kids, because I'm a former school psychologist and we use the spirituality for kids. If you can Google that.
Okay, that's fine. I think that's important. I think it's important to know that this exists and that you can look for it. And, you know, luckily, you know, with our computers, almost anything you think might exist, you can find.
Yeah. Diana Winston, she's the one who does it. Yes.
Okay, you can share that later. Okay. Anyway, yes, I really think it's important. I'm glad your daughter talks to you about it. And wave action, you know, that's something most adults don't understand. It's like, why did I lose it? Why don't I have that all the time? I mean, I remember being a kid and going, why can't I be happy all the time? What am I doing wrong? I must be doing something wrong. I never had a sense that happiness and unhappiness were required together for one to be meaningful to the other. It's just how it works, you know.
She's and I was very similar at age 8, terrified of me dying, and my explanation to her is that, you know, we're astronauts and these are our ships, and that I know for a fact that my mother is still with me. I don't have physical evidence, but I know that when my daughter was being born, my mother's presence was completely filling every square inch of that room. And I've made a promise to her that it's not all black and it's not all nothing, and that who we are when we're here is navigating this meat instrument.
Right. No.
And she's okay with that.
Exactly. That's what one has to do. I mean, our parents set us up on paths. You know, my mother said dying was going to sleep and never waking up. So of course I have had sleep issues ever since. You know, that's kind of what happens. And you have to deal with all these things. I also owe my spiritual work to that because I try to understand what it means to die and never wake up. Ever, 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 ever. That idea of forever was really crucial to being on this path. So it all works in the end. I mean, every one of us relates to these things in different ways, but we're all being impacted by the journey. You know, what else is there? We're all on it. No one knows what we're on or understands it, but we're on it. And finding the metaphors and raising children to come into this, the most precious beings in the universe are the children, and yet there we are, not really knowing what to say except express your truth. You know, and the problem with the world is most people's truth is fairly shallow and unexplored. But if you have a deeper truth and you've been working at this, share your journey with them. They grow from it. They want it. They want the truth. They know when you're lying to them.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
And it's like she's got it, yet she still has to experience this.
Yeah. I mean, we all have it, but we have to experience the ride. And I will tell you, because of having gotten somewhat old, being old is a great thing because you really, I mean, I'm watching all of my friends. We're all happier now than we've ever been in our life. You know, I don't have to worry about writing another screenplay for a studio that, you know, is going to get hacked. You know, I don't have to worry. I don't have to worry about anything at this point in life, really. I mean, I can. I mean, I see sometimes where the body will worry about, you know, I can worry about my grandchildren now. It's a whole new level of things to worry about. But it doesn't do anything. What's the worry about? What are you doing with worrying? Nothing. You're not protecting or helping. I mean, a little bit you are. If you worry that, you know, did I leave the door open? Did I not leave the door open? Is the pool, are they out near the pool? I mean, whatever it is your mind goes to, yes, that's there for a reason. It doesn't have to be worry. It's just like, thank you for the reminder. I mean, I'm really watching. My mind is really interesting to me. It really does present me with exactly what I need to do to get ready to go on a trip. Yesterday we got in the car to come here. It gave me a little checklist. I didn't write anything down. It just, before I left, check, 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 check. These things were all presented effortlessly. And effortlessly we got in the car pretty much and we drove here. And, you know, I expected to trade off driving on the ride, but in fact I drove the whole way. And I kept thinking, well, this is going to get so awful. And by Bakersfield, it is kind of awful. But it doesn't matter because it's still whatever it is. You know, and so we had much more beautiful terrain, much more beautiful environment than I imagined. The coloration of everything around us yesterday was beyond belief gorgeous, Turneresque in a way. And the drive was remarkable. It was a remarkable experience. And it happened always in the present. It was always present tense, and there was no thinking of, oh God, when are we going to get there? Except Josh would laugh, when are we going to get there, Dad? You know, but that was, you know, because that's what we did when we were kids. You know, But now it's like it's amazing. It's just amazing being. It's, you know, there was nothing. I thought I would be exhausted. I never got exhausted. I just was there. The energy of being is always vibrant. It's just vibrant, and I was kind of amazed by that. I didn't expect that to happen. And I just watch it unfold with a kind of gratitude and amazement, which is, I think, ultimately what we get to. Whether you've done it through spiritual work or just get old enough, you know, and you go moment to moment, wow, that's what we're getting. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you very much. I believe there's some brunch downstairs. We'll be here next weekend, and then we'll try to get back, as I say, once a month to sit with you, and there'll always be somebody wonderful sitting here.